You are 17 years old. Your father has just spent the equivalent of £120,000 preparing you for the next 4 months. At the end of those 4 months, you will either be engaged to a man you have spoken to perhaps 6 times in your entire life, or you will be considered a failure. Not just you, your sisters, your mother, your family's position in London society for the next decade. There is no third option. Welcome to the 1888 London season, the most expensive, most ruthless, most perfectly disguised trap in British history. You don't volunteer for this. Your father decides. He looks at the books, looks at the social calendar, and decides 1888 is your year. The season officially runs from April to July, 4 months in which London's upper classes descend on the city for a relentless schedule of balls, dinners, and presentations. Your job for those 4 months is simple. Attach yourself to a man with money and land before July ends. Everything else is theatre designed to make that transaction look romantic. The cost to your father for one season is between £500 and £1,000. In 1888 money, that is £70,000 to £140,000 in today's terms. That buys your dresses, your dancing masters, your deportment coaches, your season tickets, your chaperone, and the rent on a London townhouse for 4 months, because your country estate is too far from the action. And this is just the entry fee. If you don't secure a proposal in season 1, you do it again next year. Possibly the year after. Your father is making a calculated investment. He expects a return. 6 months before the season begins, your real education starts. Not history or literature. The Victorians weren't interested in educating your mind. They were interested in your spine. A deportment master arrives 3 times a week. His job is to make you walk like someone has inserted a steel rod between your shoulder blades. You balance a stack of books on your head and walk the length of the drawing room. And then you walk it again. 2 hours, until the books don't move. If they fall, you start over. Then comes the curtsy. The Victorian full court curtsy is not a gentle dip. It is a controlled collapse. Both legs bend. You descend until your back knee is inches from the floor. Your spine stays perfectly straight. Your chin stays level. Your eyes stay forward. Then you rise. Smoothly, without grabbing anything for support. You practice this until your knees bruise. Because in front of Queen Victoria, you get 1 attempt. 1. There is no second chance, and there is no do-over. Your dancing master arrives separately. You learn the quadrille, the lancers, the polka. The waltz is permitted in 1888, but only with men to whom you have been formally introduced. Touching a stranger's waist is still considered dangerously forward. Your elocution coach trains you to project your voice without raising it, to laugh without opening your mouth too wide, and to end every sentence with a slight upward inflection, so you always sound interested in whoever is speaking. You are being programmed. And the program costs your father £3 a session. The morning of your presentation at court, you wake at 6. The dressing process takes 3 hours. The foundation is the corset. Victorian stays in 1888 are serious engineering, steel-boned, laced from behind, pulling your waist to approximately 20 inches. Breathing is possible. Deep breathing is not. Your lady's maid laces it in stages so your body adjusts gradually. If she laces too fast, you faint. This is not a figure of speech. Fainting from tight lacing was common enough that smelling salts were standard equipment in every dressing room in Mayfair. Over the corset goes the petticoat, then the court dress. The rules are enforced by royal officials. The dress must be white or cream. The neckline must be cut low. Showing more skin is the rule at court, not less. And the train must be exactly 6 feet long, attached at the shoulders. You will manage this train with your left foot for the entirety of your time in the palace. The gloves are white kid leather, running from fingertip to armpit. They cannot wrinkle from the moment they go on. You will not bend your elbows unnecessarily for the rest of the day. The final piece is the headdress. 3 Prince of Wales feathers, white ostrich plumes, wired into the back of your hair at exactly the correct angle, exactly 27 inches high. If they tilt, the palace officials notice. If they fall, the entire room notices. You have bobby-pinned them, wired them, and prayed. You are now wearing approximately 15 pounds of fabric and engineering. You cannot sit back in a chair. The train and feathers make it physically impossible. For the next 8 hours, you will stand or perch on the very edge of seats. Your ribs are already beginning to register a complaint. Your carriage departs for Buckingham Palace at 1 in the afternoon. The presentation doesn't begin until 3. This is deliberate. You are not the only debutante being presented today. There are hundreds of you, all arriving at the same time, and the carriages form a line stretching through the Mall and around into St. James's. You will sit in this carriage, in full court dress with feathers and train, in the heat of an April afternoon, for somewhere between 3 and 6 hours. The windows stay mostly closed because the air in London in 1888 smells like coal smoke and horse manure. There are 300,000 horses in the city, depositing approximately 1,000 tons of waste on the streets every single day. Fresh air is not fresh. You cannot eat, because eating risks staining the white dress. You cannot drink much, because there is no bathroom and you cannot remove the dress. The newspapers of the era recorded what actually happened in the carriages during the longer queues. Women fainted. Women became sick. Women quietly and desperately managed biological realities in ways their court dresses were not designed to accommodate. The Times reported in 1885 that one presentation day queue lasted 7 hours. 7 hours. In a stationary carriage, in steel-boned corsetry, in white kid gloves. This is the part the paintings never show. You are inside the palace. 6 months and 4 hours of waiting for this. You have 30 seconds. A palace official calls your name. You walk through the double doors into the throne room. Queen Victoria, or in larger presentations, the Princess of Wales, sits on a raised dais at the far end. You walk forward, stop at the marked spot, and execute the curtsy you have practiced 1,000 times. Both knees bend, back straight. You kiss the gloved royal hand. You rise, 3 steps to the side, and then you walk backwards, managing your 6-foot train with your left foot, out of the throne room, without ever turning your back on the monarch. The documented failures were brutal and completely public. In 1886, a debutante from a Shropshire family tripped on her train during the backwards walk and went down on one knee in front of the entire court. The gossip columns ran the story for 3 days. Her season was effectively finished before her first ball. Her younger sister's prospects were damaged for 2 years afterward. 30 seconds. 1 chance. Your entire future balanced on the backwards management of 6 feet of silk. There are dozens of balls across the season. The one that matters is Almack's Assembly Rooms on King Street, St. James's. It has been called the 7th heaven of the fashionable world. Getting in requires a voucher. Vouchers are issued by 7 patronesses, aristocratic women of supreme social rank, who meet privately and decide who is and is not acceptable. You cannot buy a voucher. You cannot inherit one. You can only be granted one, and the patronesses do not explain their decisions. The Duke of Wellington, the man who defeated Napoleon at Waterloo, was turned away from Almack's doors in 1814 for arriving in trousers instead of knee breeches. The rules did not bend for military victories against Europe's greatest general. In 1888, the dress code has loosened slightly, but the exclusivity has not. No voucher sends one message to every house in London: you have been evaluated and found insufficient. No voucher means no serious proposals. No serious proposals means a failed season. One private vote by 7 women, and it is over before it began. If you do receive a voucher, Almack's closes at 11. Doors lock at 11 sharp and are not reopened for anyone. You are inside from 9, on your feet, dancing, talking, performing, being measured for 2 hours straight, smiling until your face aches, being witty without being forward, being interested without being eager. There is a word for a girl who tries too hard at Almack's. It is not a kind word. One detail the history books tend to leave out. The food at Almack's was spectacularly bad. The refreshments inside the most exclusive rooms in London consisted of stale bread and butter, weak lemonade, and a cake described by one countess in 1820 as resembling slightly sweetened sawdust. The patronesses made no effort to improve the menu. They didn't need to. You were not there for the food. You were there to be seen. The food's mediocrity was the point. It proved that Almack's didn't need to impress you. You needed to impress Almack's. At each ball, you receive a small booklet with a pencil attached. Every dance of the evening has a line. Men approach, bow, and ask to be penciled in. You smile, agree, write the name. The card is a social contract, and everyone in the room is reading it. A man who asks for 2 dances with the same woman is signaling serious intent. Anything beyond 2 dances in one evening is understood as a near declaration of interest. If he requests 2 dances and does not follow up with a formal call to your father within the week, your reputation absorbs the damage, not his. The matrons sitting along the walls are not resting. They are counting. They know whose card is full by 10 and whose still has empty slots at midnight. They know which men have asked which girls for second dances and which ones haven't asked at all. This information is in the morning room conversations by 9 the next day and in the gossip columns the day after. Every empty line on your card is a small, public failure, written in pencil, read by everyone. There is one more rule about dancing you need to understand. If a man books your dance and then fails to appear when the set begins, the social protocol is excruciating. You cannot simply take another partner. You must stand at the edge of the floor, visibly partnerless, while every other couple forms their set around you. For the duration of that dance, typically 5 to 7 minutes, you stand alone in the most public room in London, watched by every matron and every gossip column correspondent in the building, wearing the fact of being abandoned like a placard around your neck. The man who failed to appear faces no equivalent consequence whatsoever. A man calls on your father. He is 34, has a house in Hertfordshire and 400 acres. He has asked for your hand. Your father calls you in, explains the offer, and asks if you have any objection. This is the most input you will have in the entire process. If you marry this man, everything you own, your clothes, your jewellery, the small inheritance from your grandmother, your future earnings, becomes his property the moment you say I do. This is not a cultural nuance. This is the law. Under the doctrine of coverture, a married woman in 1888 has no independent legal existence. You cannot sign a contract in your own name. You cannot keep your own wages. You cannot sue anyone in a court of law. You legally dissolve into your husband. The Married Women's Property Act of 1882 gave you the right to keep property owned before marriage. a reform so radical that Parliament debated it for 20 years. The negotiation between the two fathers covers your dowry, what your father pays the groom's family, and your pin money, the annual allowance your husband agrees to give you for personal expenses. The average pin money for an upper middle class marriage in 1888 is £50 to £100 a year. That is what you will live on personally for the rest of your life, inside a marriage, at the discretion of another person. No proposal after season 1. You return next year. The whispers begin. Nothing vicious yet, just a quiet recalibration of expectations in every drawing room that knows your name. Your mother's conversations with other mothers carry a new undercurrent. Your father's accountant has already noted the additional expense. If the second season also ends without a proposal, the word spinster begins to follow you at a distance. In 1888, this is not merely a social label, it is a financial category. An unmarried woman of the upper classes has no independent income unless her father provides it. When her father dies, that provision may end entirely. The options that remain are narrow. Become a governess, educated women teaching other people's children for £25 to £50 a year, or become a paid companion to an elderly wealthy relative, managing another person's comfort in exchange for room and board, or live as a dependent in a brother's household on whatever he chooses to give you. The 1881 census recorded 3.2 million unmarried women in England. The Victorians published serious newspaper articles about what to do with what they called the surplus women problem. The women themselves were not consulted about the solution. The governess position deserves a specific mention. In 1888, a governess occupies a uniquely punishing social position. She is educated enough to sit at the family dinner table in an emergency, but she is paid staff, so she does not actually sit there. She exists in a room between upstairs and downstairs, belonging fully to neither world. She spends her days teaching the daughters of successful men the same accomplishments, the deportment, the piano, the curtsy, that she herself mastered and which still failed to secure her a husband. She is living proof of what the season's machine does to the women it rejects, and every girl in every drawing room in London knows it. Here is what the season actually was. The white dress said purity. It meant available. The 3 feathers said tradition and royal approval. They meant your father has paid the entry fee and cleared the first inspection. The curtsy before the Queen said respect for the crown. It meant you have been certified for market. The balls and the vouchers and the dance cards and the matrons watching from the walls, all of it was one machine with one function, moving a woman from her father's financial ledger to a husband's. The Victorians built this machine and called it society. They dressed it in silk and candlelight and called it the season. They painted it, wrote novels about it, and made it look, from the outside, from the distance of a century, like the most romantic period in British history. The next time you make your own money, sign your own name on a contract, drink water from a tap without waiting for anyone's permission, or simply decide where you are going, tonight, without asking your father. Remember that, in 1888, a woman in the most powerful empire on earth spent 6 months training for a 30-second curtsy, sat in a carriage for 7 hours in a steel corset, managed the most important walk of her life backwards in 6 feet of silk, smiled through 2 months of being evaluated like livestock at a county fair, and then legally ceased to exist the moment she said yes. The season is over. The carriage is outside. Go home.